And they eventually found out that the Morbius, the living vampire, holds the cure to his brand new ailment. Hello everyone, today we'll be talking about an old piece by Bowen. It's the 6 arms version of the Spider-Man mini busts they produced back in 2008. It's sculpted by the Kucharik brothers, who also sculpted most of the Bowen busts. Let's look at the box. So it's a pretty compact box. It stands at 21 centimeters tall, which is just over 8 inches, and 26 centimeters wide, which is a little over, no, which is exactly 10 inches, and 13.5 centimeters deep, which is just over 5 inches. I usually don't collect statues as small as this one, but I believe this is the only statue depiction of this version of Spider-Man, at least on the licensed statues. I'm sure there are customs. So I actually didn't first see this version of Spider-Man on the comics, which this specific one is based on. My first encounter with this was on the Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends cartoon back in the 80s, which featured Spider-Man, Firestar, and Iceman. But on that one, it wasn't Spider-Man who had 6 arms. It was someone who tried to get his Spider-Man's powers, but instead grew 6 arms first, then eventually transformed into a giant spider. Now this one is based on his comics appearances, which took place from Spider-Man 100 to 102, so a 3-issue story called 6 Arms Saga. So in the story, Peter Parker is basically fed up with being Spider-Man, and he tries to develop his own serum to get rid of his powers, but instead he grows 4 extra arms, and then he goes on to ask for Dr. Kurt Connors' help, aka the Lizard. He offers Peter his isolated vacation house as a refuge, and at the same time we witness the first comic appearance of Morbius the living vampire. A small ship finds Michael Morbius stranded in the ocean and picks him up. Shortly after that, crew members start to disappear, so they confront him, and he attacks them and hides. But during nighttime, when everyone's asleep, he comes back and feeds on them, killing everyone. Then he feels guilty and jumps back into the ocean. He eventually washes ashore and stumbles upon Connor's house. He goes in thinking the place is deserted and falls asleep. Meanwhile, the 6-armed Spider-Man is working on a cure for his condition in Connor's lab downstairs. At some point, he gets frustrated and makes some noise. This awakens Morbius, and he goes on to attack Spider-Man. As they fight, Connors arrives, and he's attacked by Morbius immediately, which causes him to transform into the Lizard. Now both of them want to kill Spider-Man, so they start to fight over that. Morbius bites the Lizard and escapes, but as a result of the bite, Connors temporarily regained the control of his mind, so he joins forces with Spider-Man to track down Morbius, believing that an enzyme in his blood can help cure them both. Eventually they find him, defeat him, and get the blood sample, which does cure them both and transforms Spider-Man back to normal, ending the 6 Arms Saga. So let's look at the dimensions of the bust itself. So it stands exactly at 6.25 inches, which is 16 centimeters, and at its widest It's around 20 centimeters wide, which is about 8 inches, and its depth is 9.5 centimeters, which is a little under 4 inches. So as I said, it's a compact statue at 6 scale. It would be amazing if this statue was actually full size. But it reflects the usual Bowen quality that we come to expect from them. There are very little paint smearing around the lines, as you can see. Tearing of the fabric where the extra limbs come out are sculpted beautifully. Base itself is very conservative. It does have a slight webbing with spiders crawling on top of it. It's one of the classic Bowen bases we're used to. The design of Spider-Man himself is classic Spider-Man, very comics accurate. Obviously this was in the 80s, before Todd McFarlane came and revitalized the character. The pose is reflective of his transformation. It would have been a bit more dynamic if he maybe leaned back a little bit to better express his transformation like that, but a forward-facing head sculpt is more useful in terms of display options. The Spider-Man logo in the front does look a bit dated at this point, but that's also part of the beauty of the statue itself, as it reflects a more nostalgic era in Spider-Man's publication history. So if you are a fan of the 6-armed Spider-Man, or if you like this version at all, this statue is pretty much your only option. And even though it's been 12 years since this one was released, it's still possible to hunt one down on eBay, of course at a huge markup, but that's how it works. That's it guys. If you liked the review, please like and subscribe, and see you on the next one.